think Manchester United is it's like a religion to the people.
Man United were the first one to play 16 and 17-year-old players, and then the first ones to break into Europe.
I still regard this as my club. I think we all do, all the players from that, you know, that era. And it was such, I was watching something the other day, Bob Paisley was talking about Liverpool, saying about the family atmosphere, and that's exactly what it was like.
I always wanted to create a feeling that we were all part of the club, even no matter who they were, the washerwomen, we're all a team.
It's always been a vibrant place. There's never been a boring place. There's always something been happening here.
Meanwhile, the jubilant winners display soccer's most coveted strap of silver to an ecstatic crowd.
Mr. Wiebacker, President of the European Union of Football Associations, handed it over. It's easy to imagine how excited they are, though the cup has never been treated this way before.
As the news of the disaster became known, Britain was appalled. Among the fatalities were 7 members of the famous Manchester United team.
The losers congratulate the winners and join the fans, all except one anyway, in cheering United's captain, Johnny Carey, as he receives the cup from the hands of His Majesty the King. Another handshake from the Queen, as she presents him with his cup winner's medal.
The seeds of Manchester United were sown in 1878, when the dining room committee of the carriage and wagon works of the Lancashire and Yorkshire Railway formed a football team. With a green and gold strip, it was given the cumbersome name Newton Heath L&YR, after the location of the railway yards. Matches were played nearby at a ground at the junction of North Road and Monsall Road, of which nothing remains save for descriptions of the pitch. It was said to be a clay pit as hard as flint and surrounded by a quagmire. Such dressing room facilities as there were available at a nearby pub, the 3 Crowns in Oldham Road. By 1889, Newton Heath played in the local league, having left railway competitions behind, and together with 11 other clubs, among them the future Manchester City and Birmingham City, were combined to form the Football Alliance, inferior only to the First Division. 3 years later, the Football League decided to expand Division 1 and created Division 2 from the Alliance. Newton Heath and Nottingham Forest were promoted to the First Division and joined clubs like Everton, West Bromwich and Sunderland. Newton Heath lasted only 2 seasons before demotion to the Second Division at the end of the 1893-94 season. They were to stay there for the next 12 years. In 1893, the club moved from North Road to a ground at Bank Lane, Clayton. Built in the shadow of a chemical works, a local rhyme had it that, as Satan was flying over Clayton for hell, he was chained in the breeze, likewise the smell. Quoth he, I'm not sure in what country I roam, but I'm sure from the smell I'm not far from home. During successive seasons, their indifferent performance kept them around the middle of the Second Division, although they did win the Lancashire Cup in 1898. Like almost every club in the 2 leagues, they had financial problems, but Newton Heath's were so severe that by February 1902, their debts amounted to £2,670. The official receiver was called in by the creditors, and the club faced extinction. The club was saved by a group of 4 men who each injected £500 into it. Heading the consortium was Manchester brewer J.H. Davies, who became the new president, and from the ashes of Newton Heath, a new club was formed, with a new name, Manchester United. With Davies's financial backing and enthusiastic support, and the shrewd team purchases of manager J.E. Mangnall, the club began to move forward. By 1906, they'd won promotion to the First Division. 2 seasons later, they were league champions. And the following year, 1909, they won the FA Cup. At the start of that season, plans had been unveiled for a new ground. It was to be built at Old Trafford, would hold 80,000 people and provide full facilities for players and spectators alike. It would cost £60,000. By February the 19th, 1910, the plans had become reality, and Old Trafford opened its doors to the 50,000 people who turned up to watch United's inaugural match against Liverpool. United lost 4-3 on what to them was still an away ground, but soon made themselves at home, finishing the season 5th from top. As if to prove their point, they took the league title the following year. This was their last major honour for many years. Their manager, J.E. Mangnall, joined Manchester City, and from then on, the club drifted like a boat without a rudder. Successive managers tried to put the club back on course, but still they wandered from Second to First Division and back again, perhaps uncertain as to their rightful place. Added to this, money was again a problem. J.H. Davies died in 1927 to be succeeded by James Gibson. He too injected cash into the club and fought off the creditors. By 1938, United were back in the First Division, but their debts now amounted to £75,000.
When the Nazis made their ferocious aerial attack on Manchester, they adopted the now familiar tactics of flare dropping followed by incendiary bombs. Why the flare dropping, goodness knows, but they still bomb indiscriminately.
The disaster that befell United during the night of March the 11th, 1941, served to add to their problems. Stray German bombs from an air raid directed at the industrial complex of Trafford Park fell on Old Trafford, wrecking the pitch and demolishing the stands. By 1945, the debts and the debris were still there, and the search began for a manager to take it all on.
They wanted me to be assistant manager at Liverpool. And there was some offers from Scotland, and out of the blue, I got an offer from Manchester United, and I was always a lover of Manchester anyway. And I eventually, after meetings with old Mr. Gibson, Mr. Jimmy Gibson, I signed for Manchester United as the team manager.
Guiding United is ex-star Matt Busby, keeping a player's eye on the first-team workout.
Matt Busby was soon styled a tracksuit manager. He went and trained with his team, an approach that took the older players by surprise.
Before the war, of course, managers were not quite in that. They weren't tracksuit managers. They didn't sort of go. They were sort of administrators.
Matt and Jimmy Murphy played with us. We played. They were inside, and Jimmy Murphy was a dirty little one. You know, if you didn't do what you should have done, you got flogged. A lot of people say when the war finished and Matt more or less took over, he had a team, but he never had a team at all. He had some talent, but it definitely needed sorted out. We had a right full-back who kicked the ball the way he was facing. Half the time it finished up in the stand.
My general idea was to build a side that played, that was exciting or entertaining, or try and play football.
Skipper Johnny Carey clears an early Yeovil raid, and from then it's United all the way. The near-perfect soccer machine in action. A corner starts the avalanche, and Jack Rowley scores goal number 1. Another corner and another goal. Jack Rowley again the scorer.
All this time, the United were waiting their chance, and Pearson, the inside left, moves centre and heads in Manchester's first goal. Four minutes later came the second Manchester goal, and again it's Pearson who beats Wallace with another magnificent header.
And there's still more to come. Jack Rowley scores number 8 to make his own tally 4.
Our ambitions were realised in '48 when we beat Blackpool in the final, which is one of they claim it is one of the great finals that's been played at Wembley.
A close duel between Manchester's Johnny Carey and Blackpool's Walter Rickett, number 11, is highlight number 1 in a thrill-packed match. Highlight number 2 comes when Stan Mortensen is tripped in the penalty area, and referee Barrick awards Blackpool a spot kick. As the crowd rise to cheer, Eddie Shimwell drives it home to give the Seasiders the lead. Manchester's Jack Rowley, walking the ball into the net to equalise, provides highlight number 3. Kick and a seemingly impossible angle, Stanley Mortensen whips in a goal to give Blackpool the half-time lead. But now Manchester's attack, which has scored 95 goals this season, swings into its best style. From Johnny Morris's well-placed free kick, the fans cheer Jack Rowley's headed equaliser. With the score at 2-2, Blackpool are again on the attack. Stanley Matthews, who has been shut out effectively, beats Manchester's Johnny Aston, but the Seasiders finishing his score. Charlie Midden, number 11, starts off United's winning attack, and from Rowley's pass, Stan Pearson scores the goal that gives Manchester the cup. The King hands the silver trophy to skipper Johnny Carey. Their 4-2 victory, snatched in the last few minutes, gives Manchester United the reward they richly deserve.
United finished second in the league in 1948 and continued their run of success for the next 3 years, ending with the league title in 1952. By then, the side, led by Johnny Carey, was beginning to feel its age, and a new set of players had to be found.
From then on, we concentrated purely simply on youth, because that was my whole wish for the club. Not only as a great side was to continue having teams.
We watched the England trials, Scottish trials, Welsh trials, and chose, as we thought, the best of the youngsters. Not only us chased the youngsters, but I think we were the first club to start making our own players at Manchester United.
I think Jimmy Murphy and Matt Busby, one of those famous salt and vinegar partnerships, Barnum and Bailey, very different types of men, but that's often what makes a good partnership. Sir Matt, father figure, very shrewd, making decisions at the top. But of course, producing a football team goes a long way down the line. And Jimmy Murphy was the nitty-gritty man of the partnership. He was the man who would go down in the old days on Tuesday and Thursday evenings and take the kids who were sent along. Bert Wally would handle them first. Then they would move up from first year to second year. Jimmy Murphy would take them.
Jimmy Murphy, who was the assistant manager at that time, picked me up when I first arrived at Exchange Station, and I had my big Mac on, you know, and my bag ready for I was coming into the big world away from the northeast, and he took me to my digs and he said, I've got this lad who I'm dying for you to play with. We got him last year from Dudley in Staffordshire, Duncan Edwards. And he says, what a player, what a player. He's good in the air, good right foot, good left foot, strong in the tackle, reads the game brilliantly, can play in any position, and scores goals at will, literally. And he says, and when I knock all the rough edges off him, I'm going to make him a decent player.
I'm an Edwards fanatic. Is a fact, he was the most complete footballer I've ever seen. He had strength, power in both feet, he had 40 and 50 yards balls with consummate ease.
He was like a man playing with boys. When he was, if you can imagine, it's 16, 17, well, I think it was 17 or 18, he was picked for England and was an automatic choice immediately.
Eddie Coleman, he only weighed about 9 stone, wet through, little Eddie. Tremendous player. Eddie Coleman would have been a star today in his own right.
He hadn't got a weakness. I don't think he got a weakness, even though he's so small. I mean, you'd be sprinting down the track and all of a sudden something would come past you. It's this little fella.
Little Eddie, if you can imagine me coming from the northeast, I'd never seen drainpipe trousers or anything, you know. And there's this little cocky lad, you know, from Salford swaggering around saying that he was the best, you know, and he did things with the ball that I considered were arrogant, you know, and really out of place in football, but he did it and the crowd loved him, you know.
Jimmy would say, that one will make it, that one won't, that one will, that one won't. And that's an enormous help if you can get somebody making those right decisions. And Jimmy did make the right decisions. Otherwise, there wouldn't have been the Busby Babes.
It came on just like clockwork. Wonderful. They all fitted into the Old Trafford groove. The Old Trafford minded, our own products, our own future stars, and quite a few of them came into our first team at a very, very young age indeed.
Birmingham open with a swift attack, but the Babes are quite unruffled, and very soon it's Birmingham's Gil Merrick who has to worry. John Barry receives and makes for the penalty area. He beats Ken Green. Everyone expects him to pass, but he fools them all and shoots. Manchester fans are wild with joy, but there's more to come. Outside left, David Pegg is on the move straight from the restart. Jeff Hall blocks him, but he retrieves it and tries again. Over to Bobby Charlton, who slams it home. By half-time, the excitement's too much for some of the fans. But Busby's Babes start the second half in cracking form with that slippery winger, David Pegg, on the move again and passing to Billy Whelan. Whelan beats Merrick, but it hits the post. Here's Madrid on the attack. Centre forward to Stefano shoots, but goalie Wood tips it round. But after the interval, Manchester really start getting down to work. Left winger Pegg has the ball. He centres, it bounces off Taylor, and Whelan makes sure of it. Manchester are the youngest cup team ever, but they start off like veterans. Manchester winger Johnny Berry beats his man and cuts across to pass to Taylor. Taylor moves in, but goalie Nigel Sims dives at his feet. Tommy Taylor has it, and Manchester are on the move. No sign of Wembley nerves about these boys. In spite of his injured jaw, Ray Wood's back in play, taking the right wing for the time being. To help him out, Manchester concentrate on the left till he finds his feet. But their attack is handsomely held by goalie Sims. Into the centre, and it's the same again. Duncan Edwards takes it. And Taylor finds the net.
We had success at youth team level. In the Youth Cup, we won it 5 years on the run, and I was lucky enough to play in the middle three. Now, these were the big things I remembered about Manchester United, growing up with the real Busby Babes.
I remember we played them at Deepdale, and I was at Preston North End, and we were a very good side. And at 3:20, we were 5 down, and they were only kids then.
All of those players had something to offer. I mean, Jeff Bent, who was a reserve, I'm sure, could have played for England. That was the quality that was there.
It's very hard to keep a place in this club. Very difficult, because nobody wanted to leave, you know. Doing it anybody that said, oh, I've had enough of this, I'm off. You know, there's nowhere else to go.
On the fringe of a Munich airport lies the wreckage of an airliner, still smouldering from a crash in which 21 people were killed. Tragedy enough at any time. But in that plane were a group of young men who were almost the personal friends of millions. Manchester United, the finest soccer team Britain has produced since the war. And 7 of them died in the crash. 10 others, as well as their famous manager, Matt Busby, were injured. Some so seriously that their lives hung in the balance. Busby's babes, as they were affectionately called, were on their way home from Belgrade when the disaster struck. They were on top of the world. Their 3-goal draw with Yugoslavia's Red Star team had put them through to the European Cup semi-finals. They had high hopes of the English FA Cup. Now those hopes are snuffed out, like the lives of 7 of their finest players.
Only the day before, they'd met Red Star in Belgrade in their European Cup tie. United had been quick to take the lead. This was through a goal by Dennis Viollet, one of those injured in the crash. In the first half, the British team were making rings round the Yugoslavs, and they scored their second thanks to Bobby Charlton, another of the injured. This is how all would like to remember the boys of this great team playing typically fine football.
And I was saying prayers that people like Eddie Coleman and Dave Pegg would be all right, not knowing that a lot of people already knew that they'd been killed.
Duncan Edwards injured, Bill Fuchs injured. Mark Jones killed. Ray Wood injured. Eddie Coleman killed. David Pegg killed. Dennis Viollet injured. Tommy Taylor killed. Roger Byrne killed. Bill Whelan killed. John Barry injured. Matt Busby was their worst problem. For 2 days he lay between life and death with one of his lungs completely deflated. Then came the welcome news. Matt was off the danger list.
And then it was my wife actually that came in one day and said, he's asked so many times who's ill, who's bad, who has died. I think it's time we were telling them the truth. And of course, when I mentioned thy name, the other nodded the head, which meant that they'd been killed.
It's something we very rarely talk about, but there's a big chunk of our minds often think about the people, the actual day and the accident and the people who died, and the press people as well, everybody.
We know that history says that they were great and everything else, and I'm quite sure, I agree with the boys, there was such a tremendous amount of talent on that side. I don't know. I think we could have won the boat race.
Into Liverpool Street Station came 2 who survived the disaster unharmed. Harry Gregg, goalkeeper, and Billy Fuchs, accompanied by assistant manager Jim Murphy.
I had this great empire of ours to run. I used to dodge back and forth to Munich to see the Matt and the boys, of course, and so back again, starting the job. Of course, I had only 2 or 3 first-team players left. So I had to buy 1 or 2. I bought little Ernie Taylor from Blackpool and Stan Crowell from Aston Villa.
Lads really that had really should never have been in the team were being thrown into this unbelievable atmosphere. People like Bobby Harrop, you know, Shea Brennan came into the team, people like that, playing out of position. Everybody was playing out of position. Third team players suddenly were first team players now. So I came to the first Sheffield match, which poor old Sheffield had no chance.
Less than a fortnight after the Munich air crash, the Babes are fielding a scratch side for a fifth-round FA Cup tie. And apart from Fuchs himself, the only member of the original team is goalie Harry Gregg. But from the start, they look more like champions than a forlorn hope. Within a few minutes, they're giving Sheffield goalie Brian Riles some work to do. And the 60,000 crowd at Old Trafford, who came prepared to make all the allowances in the world, can hardly believe their eyes. Scratch team or no, this is straight out of the Busby mould. Now the United forwards are on the attack, and that was nearly it. Brennan takes the corner, and it's in. Second half, and Manchester United are still incredibly one goal up and fighting every minute of the way. Mark Pearson's shot rebounds, but Seamus Brennan's there to land a beauty. "17-year-old Mark Pearson has the ball. Alec Dawson's ready to receive, and there's number 3. Old Trafford seen some many great days, but for brilliant triumph over disaster, surely none will ever be as great as this.
And saw you through to the next round?
Through the next round.
And that was against West Bromwich?
West Bromwich, yes, at West Brom, the first one. And Bobby Charlton Pride was in this stage of recuperating after his accident during Munich. Took him quite a while, and he played at West Brom. Terrific game there, 2-2 at West Brom, 2 each. And the replay was at Old Trafford.
Nurses and doctors are cheered to the echo as they walk out onto the Old Trafford turf. Waiting for them is one of their ex-patients, goalie Harry Gregg, who presents a bouquet to Sister Lieselotte Pippi, youngest of the party. And now brought from Germany by Empire News, the voice of Matt Busby himself.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm speaking from my bed in the Eisel Hospital in Munich, where I have been since a tragic accident of just over a month ago. You will be glad, I am sure, to know that the remaining players here and myself are now considered out of danger.
One more player had since died of his injuries, Duncan Edwards.
So that then puts you through into the semi-finals?
Against Fulham, the first of which is played at Villa Park, another tremendous battle. And then that's a draw again. The replay was at the Arsenal. They thought it was a bit unkind taking a Manchester side to London, with Fulham being a London side. But again, God was on our side, David. We won 5-3. The boys were magnificent.
I did, they would say I was finished with football for all time. I was very strong about this at the time. And I let it go for a few days, and I always remember again quoting my wife saying, well, you please yourself, you know what's in your mind, but I'm sure these lads would want you to carry on. The lads that lost their lives would want you to carry on. And that started a new germ in my mind of thinking towards probably looking at it and probably in time going back towards the club again.
In spite of his injured leg, Matt is in great spirits, as happy as a schoolboy at the prospect of seeing his beloved team again. The team who have certainly not disgraced his faith in them during these difficult weeks, and who have won their way to Wembley when even their best friends feared they were finished for months to come. And if there's one body of friends who are Manchester United fans for the rest of their lives, it's the staff of the Rex Bay Isar Hospital. 100,000 people in weather that's more like summer than spring pack Wembley Stadium to watch the biggest game of the year, Bolton Wanderers in the dark shorts battling with Manchester United for the FA Cup. On the perfect turf, the teams line up for presentation to the Duke of Edinburgh. Nat Lofthouse presents the Wanderers, and then under the eyes of Matt Busby himself, United skipper Bill Fowkes presents the team which, after the Munich tragedy, very few people expected to reach the final. United kick off with the sun but against the wind. Little Ernie Taylor, Harry Gregg jumps and nearly loses it. Bolton winger Douglas Holden kicks upfield. Parry heads and Gregg misses. Sends it for a corner. Holden takes it. It's headed out and Ray Parry brings it back. He centres, but Stan Crowther's there. He clears, but Edwards returns it, and Lofthouse runs in for a lightning goal. Bobby Charlton beats Higgins. Taylor shoots, and a beautiful save by Eddie Hopkinson. United are soon sweeping back to worry him again, but nothing seems able to pierce that Bolton defence. Back and half-backs work smoothly together, and the Manchester attacks break against them like waves against a rock. So the second half starts with Bolton still only one up, but pressing hard and giving Gregg little peace. The Wanderers' experience is telling over United's enthusiasm, and Manchester seem to be finding it difficult to work as a team. Brilliant individual efforts peter out through lack of support. Up the Manchester end again with Bolton moving in fast. Dennis Stevens shoots. Gregg parries, but Nat Lofthouse charges in, and there's Bolton's second goal. Only seconds to go, and Bolton sure of victory stage a final offensive, which very nearly makes it 3-0. But there's the whistle, and Bolton Wanderers have scored the 4th cup victory of their history.
At this particular time, it meant that we couldn't wait for young people to build a young team again. It meant actually that I could try the transfer market and try and buy 1 or 2 players that I felt would help us through this particular period.
I think Sir Martin Jimmy Murphy said it would take about 5 years to restructure the whole thing, and we could start competing on a level with everybody else. And it was nearer 5 years to the day we won the cup against Leicester in '63.
That was an important milestone, wasn't it, in the history of the club, because it sort of indicated the recovery to a certain extent.
Yeah. Well, there was a tremendous turnover of players here over that 5 years. You know, players were coming in, going out, and shuffling right, left and centre. But we stayed in the race. We stayed in the race. In fact, 1963, the year we won the cup, was probably our worst year after the Munich air crash, because we were really struggling.
We just couldn't. We'd signed Pat Clare and we'd signed Law that year. And however way we played, we just couldn't win. And I remember we played at Leicester one time, and we finished up. Law scored a hat-trick, and Dennis Law scored a hat-trick. We lost 4-3, and just that way. And I remember coming in after the match and saying, "What have we got to do to win a match? What have we got to do to win a?" I said, "Just play the way we're playing, and we'll win matches eventually."
Time for United to apply the pressure. Cleran spots that inside left Dennis Law is well placed. Just watch how that Scottish wonder turns the pass to complete advantage. United have scored the all-important first goal. Law's on the warpath again. This time it seems incredible that City's goal can escape. Yet it does. Out they come for the second half. United's 1-goal lead is useful, but by no means commanding. And as Leicester kick off, they set out to demonstrate that it's anybody's game. One good thing for United, Bobby Charlton's in great form. He shoots, it goes to Hurd, and it's in the net. At last, Leicester's persistence brings reward. United don't fully clear a free kick. City centre-forward Ken Keyworth scores. Law initiates another attack. Tragically for Leicester, Banks fumbles. Ready to pounce on it is David Hurd. United's captain, Noel Cantwell, leads his men up to the royal box. For them all, it's the fulfillment of an English footballer's ambition, the cup and a cup medal. Incidentally, it's a moment of triumph for their manager, Matt Busby, proof that he has most successfully rebuilt United.
When I joined United, Bobby Charlton was an established England international. Paddy Crane, I say, came later. Albert Quixall had played for England several times. Then we bought Paddy Crane, and all of a sudden we started to get a team together which played the type of football that Manchester United were sort of renowned for.
It was like a jigsaw puzzle that just came together. I mean, Bill Foulkes was just a big, reliable centre-half, hard. Nobby was the same playing alongside him. I mean, you had those two, and you didn't want to play against them two. And then up front, you've got, you know, Bobby Dennis and I, and you've got Paddy hitting 40, 50-yard balls and landing them at your feet, you know. That's what was lovely about the team.
People said we played it off the cuff. I suppose we did to a certain extent. We still marked at corners and free kicks. We had set throw-ins, etc. But we did.
And when we played away from home, it was like carnival. I can always remember, like, getting on the bus after a train, and the people lying to the ground, people cheering and waving. And I used to wonder, I used to think, don't they think we're coming here trying to get a couple of pints today? Or are they just glad to see Manchester United?
So to the second half, and that fantastic 4-goal fusillade within 24 minutes. The equaliser came from across from Connelly, hit home by Hurd. Ten minutes later, George Best put Manchester in the lead. Now scoring their fourth, wing-half Kieran.
Lisbon kick off, attacking the goal this end. These days, Manchester United are back on top of the world, hoping to win the league, the cup, and this European Cup Winners' Cup. 17-year-old George Best passes to Law and escapes for Lisbon.
Denis Law was fantastic because he went by people by using his brain, and simplicity was his game.
He was like Dries Slyden. He was a player that we never had the likes of before, or probably won't have since. And as much as round about the box, he was just... If the goalkeeper dropped it half a yard, you know, it was in.
Law kicks over his head, and it's a goal.
5 minutes later, United attack again. A pass to Denis Law. It's a goal. It's United again. Creran to Charlton. And that England left winger is in top form tonight. He passes to Law. Another goal. United unsatisfied to lead 5-1. Denis Law backheels it to score his third goal. It was only right that Bobby Charlton should get one himself. Goal number 5. Right back, Tony Dunn finds Charlton. What a fantastic goal.
Bobby Charlton was a thoroughbred, I would say, in movement. If somebody was gifted in movement, in running, in passing, then he seemed to have that. But I would think he didn't always have it. I think that the people that he played with when he came to Manchester United brought that out in him, the place itself. But once he had it, he was a thoroughbred. He was possibly one of the best internationals I've ever seen in my life.
To get picked for England was lovely, you know. And I really enjoyed playing for England. I loved playing against international sides. It was a different game. The game at international level was just that little bit faster and a little bit more important nationally. I loved it, you know. I loved it. But I was never really far away from United because there was always other players playing with me. You know, little Nobby got picked in. Yeah, it was I always said it was the jam on the bread playing for England. You're lucky if you get picked. If I didn't, it wouldn't really matter, you know. I was quite happy here.
He had a strange twist. He hit a lot of long balls, which is unusual for a boy to hit 40 and 50 yarders. Fling him all over the place. And I said, Bobby, very, very good son, but I said, you must become a great player. You must become a good short ball player too.
Bobby would collect the ball even if I gave it to him or if Paddy gave it to him. And he would knock a 30 or 40 yard ball, either to George or David Hurd or up to Dennis, and go running. And the ball would come back to him and he would strike the ball from outside the box, and 9 times out of 10 it would go in the top corner.
Bobby Charlton sent in a blockbuster almost on half-time. Fullback George Cohen put the ball in the goal mouth. Hunt's header didn't quite make it, but Stiles scored.
I was a big fan of Nobby's, you know, because he was off the field, he was so quiet, so shy, and always bubbling and enthusiastic, but no, on the field his language was terrible. You know, he was at everybody all the time. He's a very good living religious lad, Nobby. On the field, but he used to drive everybody. You get in here and do that. And you used to turn around and see this wee guy that was half blind and no hair and a midget, and you think, well, who are you playing? And you thought, well, if he can do it, I can do it, you know.
Blind's about as many a story you could tell about Nobby. He was clumsy, he'd knock things down at the over at the table, you know, he'd spill his soup and knock a glass over every time he had a meal. Cost a fortune.
People thought Nobby Stiles was dirty. He was not. He was possibly a little bit aggressive, but he had a great thing going for him. He was a great reader of the game.
And there was one year, I forget the year exactly, but I think probably was 65, something like that. And he was literally, I used to watch him, I used to think, he's playing everybody's position, everybody's defensive position. If Shea Brennan was in trouble, he sort of had this built-in awareness, and he would go and nip it in the bud, or Bill Foulkes was in trouble, or Tony Dunn was in trouble, or I was in trouble, or whatever. And he just had this fantastic gift. Now, it's not something that you can teach anybody. He just had it, you know. He could spot it.
In 1962, a 15-year-old boy from Northern Ireland joined the club as an apprentice. His name was George Best.
I used to go down to an afternoon job, I look at the boys, the possible boys, the boys that have been recommended and everything else. And there's a slip of a boy about that, as fat and as thick as that, and as small as that. And watching them playing and carrying on, I come back with the opinion that there was someone there who had extraordinary talent. But he's still a boy of 15 years of age.
George was like Edwards. Best didn't need coaching at all. He was an individualist. A pure and out individualist was George Best. So if we take that from him, George Best would have ceased to become a player.
I think I was just like every other kid. You know, we were all soccer crazy, football crazy. And, you know, kick the ball around the streets. And it was always our dream, you know, to go and, you know, play for an English club. But you never thought it was going to come off, you know. So when it did happen, it was like a dream come true for me.
After 7 minutes, the ball went to George Best. Goal! A sharp threat to the all-conquering Benfica, unbeaten on this ground for years. But there has to be a start for everything. Best had the ball again. Another goal.
Kane used to drive me mad on the field because I wouldn't say he was selfish, you know, but I mean, he was in a world of his own, George. When he got the ball, you know, like everybody else sort of was incidental. And occasionally used to send me for dummies. Well, you don't send your own teammates for dummies, you send opposition. And I used to buy these, you know, I used to run into position to get the ball and it wouldn't come. And I used to be fuming. I come off the field often saying, the greedy little so-and-so, you know. And then one day I thought to myself, I'm going to have the luxury. If we're winning 3 or 4 with a couple of minutes to go, one match, I'm going to say to myself, "What the hell, George? You know, I'm not buying it anymore." And I've got me back to the Stretford end, around about the 18-yard box, and this will just sort of give you an idea, and it sort of puts it all in a capsule, really. And little George is on the right-hand side of the field, and I've got me back to the goal, and it's a picture I'll always have of him, with the ball apparently tied to his shoes. he didn't seem to look, you know, he actually knew where it was, he didn't have to look. And a defender trying to kick him, and I forget what it was, I think it was against Nottingham Forest or somebody like that. And I've got my back to the goals, and I see George and the little full-backs after him. And I'm saying, now stay here, don't bite. And I follow him, and he goes all the way across the field to the touchline. And then he comes back again with the full-back still chasing him. And he's coming past me, and he's just coming in towards goals. And I couldn't keep it in, you know, and I thought, George, you greedy little, what a fantastic goal, George.
When I came in 1963, the great thing about the club seemed to be this undying wish to win the European Cup. You know, and that was the aim, I think, all the time I was here.
We always said that we must win the European Cup because that's what the lads died trying to achieve. And I don't think that we'd ever be satisfied until that happened.
Bobby Charlton and Coluna exchanged Manchester United and Benfica pennants. The moment of truth in the battle for mastery of European soccer had arrived. United, playing in blue, kicked off. United launched directly into attack. Bobby Charlton took the ball into Benfica territory. George Best fell foul of the first of a series of savage tackles which marred the first half. Best again with the ball. He seemed to be a target for the stop-them-at-any-cost Benfica defence, but Italian referee Lobello let that one go. Benfica had the advantage, but met a stonewall United rearguard. It was near the end of an unglamorous first half. No score by either side. With the eyes of the world on both teams and the hopes of every Briton behind United, the second half got underway. The Busby boys seemed fired with a new enthusiasm and stormed into the attack. United's football was full of fire. Enrique had to concede a corner to keep that one out. George Best was in terrific form, but so was Enrique. United were proving the better side. Hard-working Best put the ball out to the left, where Sadler had been playing like a demon. The return centre was a beauty. Charlton headed it home. The match was by no means won. Benfica pulled off a beauty through Grassa. One all and time running out. Stepney was a wonder goalkeeper to stop that rocket from the big cannon boot of Eusebio, and the great Portuguese star sportingly acknowledged it. But that wasn't it. 90 minutes up and still deadlock. The teams were weary, but the fans weren't. And so on into the first half of extra time. And what a 15 minutes it was. Stepney collected and fed his forwards. Waiting to receive was mighty Best. He simply walked the ball into the net. What a goal! United in the lead. And that wasn't all. The Busby Babes were raring to go. They hammered Benfica. Watch this fantastic goal. My, oh my, how they cheered Kid, the birthday boy, for that super header. Even Stepney joined in. The Benfica fire had nearly been extinguished. But where United finished, not on your life. Bobby Charlton made it 4-1. Manchester United had well and truly done it. They were supreme soccer champions of Europe. At last, Matt Busby, the maestro of Manchester United, had groomed a team great enough to beat Europe's best. He was king of soccer. His wonderful 11 men were all princes. How they cheered as Bobby Charlton led his men up to receive the handsome outsized trophy. Mr. Vibacker, President of the European Union of Football Associations, handed it over. This victory didn't belong only to Manchester United supporters. This was a win for Great Britain. What a match, what a team. Charlton, Stepney, Brennan, Dunn, Crerand, Fuchs, Styles, Best, Kidd, Sadler and Aston. And pride of place, Busby.
The European Cup was the pinnacle of Matt Busby's achievement. But a year later, he decided to retire.
Jimmy Murphy and I had been there for something year 40, from 45, 46, and it was a long time.
I felt that a lot of players, probably myself included, were just about coming to the end of our careers. You know, I'm thinking in terms of players like Tony Dunn, for example, you know, Shea Brennan, Bill Foulkes. And there was obviously going to be a transitional period, and we were going to struggle a wee bit. That coincided with a lot of managerial changes at the club.
We appointed, I recommended, appointed Wilf McGuinness, and I say he did quite well considering.
I was only 31 when I got the job, but I could have done with a bit more experience under Sir Matt, if you like, as maybe first team coach with Sir Matt still manager.
There were a lot of very senior, established players, big names in the team that Wilf was suddenly asked to take charge of.
I don't think he really knew how to talk, because of personal friends, you know, and he didn't know how to talk to me as a manager, and I had to sort of switch off and think, well, is that Wilf talking, or is that the manager talking, you know?
If I looked then as I look now, you know, bald or something, they might have thought, oh, he must know something. But I looked pretty young as well, I think, at that time.
I think we went to 3 semi-finals, two League Cup semi-finals, and a FA Cup semi-final. So his record was there, but he also had to deal with so many other things.
He had the confidence in me at the time to pick me, and that was something. You know, if it didn't work out, well, it's water under the bridge. You know.
So Matt is essentially a humble man, and I think he underestimated his own importance. I think he felt that when he decided to step back, that there would be no problem, somebody would be able to take over, but he underestimated his own importance and the father figure and the stature of himself. So he made it difficult for his successor, unintentionally.
Very difficult situation. He came as a boy and left as an old man. Wilf McGuinness.
Wilf McGuinness left at the end of 1970 to be replaced for the remainder of the season by Matt Busby. Frank O'Farrell was appointed midway into 1971, and his first season started well.
You could just sense that Frank coming on the pitch of a training session in the morning and saying to himself, we're 5 points in front of every other team in the league. Nobody wanted this job. Rebbe had turned it down, I think. Steen had turned it down. I must be the luckiest man alive.
The only problem again was that somebody was stepping in and Sir Matt was still within the club. And the man still had to come and take over from Sir Matt because the same players were still there.
He seemed to me to have done a good job at Leicester. He came really, not any of us really knowing him. And I think he left really maybe the same way.
I think he was a bit unlucky too in the respect that he came and they were expecting miracles. And he wanted time, but it didn't work out that way. And
I was Scottish team manager and I went to see Crystal Palace and Manchester United at Selhurst Park. And United lost 5-0. It could have been 20-0. And I counted 4 or 5 players that day from the outside. Weren't trying to cheating. And it was a disaster. And I was approached that day, after the game, to be manager of Manchester United.
A colourful man, Tommy Docherty, the man who was going to pick the club up and shake it and wasn't afraid of the Sir Matt Busby legend. And of course that's exactly what the Doc did.
I think I might have been brought in to do a specific job. It had to be a sort of clearing out job to do, so to speak.
I don't dislike him as a man. I just think he was a bit foolish in getting rid of me.
But within a few months, I got a free transfer, which at the time was probably the blackest day of my life at that time.
I said to Tommy, I think at the end of the season I'm going to call it a day, you know, so you can make your appropriate plans for replacements. And he said, well, if you obviously thought about it, and I went.
He made my job particularly very, very easy when he retired, because how could I as a manager one day say, Bobby, infer that he was over the hill? I mean, I would have got murdered.
Tommy Docherty arrived too late to stop United sliding into the second division, but somewhat to his surprise, they shot straight back out again.
While we were at a low ebb and went into the second division, eventually he resurrected the team, and he did a very good job.
We gave the public what they wanted, entertainment, and they surprised me. They stuck to it a lot better than I thought they might have done, and week in, week out, winning and losing, we produced great football.
Docherty's promising career with United came to an abrupt end when he announced his affair with the wife of the club's physiotherapist.
The thing that annoyed me was that I was told that I was definitely staying at the club. That was a private matter. It was nothing to do with the club. And, but it was difficult. I accept it was very difficult for the club.
Dave Sexton had been approached without success at the time of McGuinness's departure. This time, he accepted.
Dave Sexton had done a very good job at Chelsea at that particular, around about that time. And we felt probably this was a man that would be the ideal one for us.
A lovely man, a nice man, quiet, introverted, complete opposite of Tommy Docherty. And of course, at least he gave the club their dignity back again, because they were in some disarray with all the scandal that the Doc created with his matrimonial excursion.
It was the FA coaching system, and it had to be, the ball had to be played from A to B to C, and the ball go in the net, which our players who played under Tommy Docherty couldn't understand.
Dave Sexton followed me, who's, I'm told, is a nice fella and a very quiet fella. And I think, you know, they got what they wanted. They got, you know, a very quiet fella, and he did nothing. He drove the people, he drove the supporters mad with the brand of football that they played.
Something had turned him sour. I don't know what the reason was, but it just didn't work out, David.
He was a bit unlucky, I felt, to be sacked at the end of the day, because he'd finished his fourth.
The next man to be given the job was Ron Atkinson. Tough and outspoken, he was in complete contrast to his predecessor. Once more, the fans, the players, shareholders and directors looked to him for an end to the changes and uncertainties and a return to the glory of the years of the past.
We like to think we're building on what's happened in the past, but it's an impossible act to follow. How can you follow people like Pat Crerand, Georgie Best, Dennis Law, Bobby Charlton? You couldn't pick players from the world to follow them. We do our best, and I know we frustrate a few people, but it's some act to finish with, and I'm sure we can do it with time and patience, but we'll see.
I always have a great affection for the club. I hope they never get themselves into any financial trouble where, you know, you hear about clubs having to pack in, you know, I mean, well, when if Man United ever have to pack in, you know, then we can all go home, I think.